tying or understanding those who believe in Allah in the last day, and what are signs and measures for those people to understand their faith. Because we said that these hadith couple or align the belief of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the last day with an action. We've talked about many actions so far, and inshallah we'll conclude with one today. Again, these are for us to understand how well we're doing them as a measure of faith and iman that we have in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we can't see iman, it's hidden in our hearts, but it's a sign of how much we have in our hearts in terms of believing in Allah in the last day. And so the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا رَأَيْتُمُ الرَّجُلَ يَعْتَادُ الْمَسْجِدَ أو في رواية أخرى يَعْتَادُ الْمَسَاجِدَ فاشهدوا له بالإيمان فإن الله يقول إنما يعمر مساجد الله من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر. And the hadith, the translation is, if you see a person that frequents the masajid of Allah, then bear witness or testify that that person is a believer, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, in actually what we read in Salat al-Isha, in Surah At-Tawbah, إِنَّمَا يَعْمُرُ مَسَاجِدَ اللَّهِ, those who frequent the masajid of Allah are those who believe in Allah in the last day. And so this is very clear. Those who believe in Allah on the last day, it's equated with how frequent we visit the masajid. How frequent do we find ourselves in the masajid? We know that the masajid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these are His home, right? So when we visit the masajid, we're visiting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is we're getting out of the dunya, we're coming to the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to get closer to Him, to build a bond and a relationship with subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because whether we like it or not, everything outside the masjid is a distraction. It's a distraction. There's obviously khayr in a lot of outside what we do outside the masjid, but at the end of the day, we come to the masjid to focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. The people come to His masajid, a sign of faith. That we said, also read in Salat al-Isha, في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيه اسمه. In homes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed, gave permission for it to be built, and His name to be remembered in it. بِالْغُدُوِّ وَالْآصَالِ. In the mornings and the evenings frequently. Who's remembering Him? رجال. Men? Who? رجال لا تلهيهم تجارة ولا بيع عن ذكر الله. Men who are not distracted by commerce, selling and trading from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يَخَافُونَ يَوْمًا تَتَقَلَّبُ فِيهِ الْقُلُوبُ. And they are afraid of a day where the hearts and the eyes are flipped, which is the day of judgment, and hence the believing in Allah on the last day. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, people who frequent the masajid, they are not distracted by the day-to-day, the selling, the buying, everything that goes on outside. And this is a sign of belief. And in another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, that أَحَبُّ الْبِلَادِ إِلَى اللَّهِ مَسَاجِدُهَا. The most beloved places to Allah are the masajid. All the masajid. And so, if we choose to come to the masjid and we frequent it, we are choosing Allah over dunya. We are choosing the hereafter over dunya. This is the equation. It's as clear as that. When we come to the masajid, we prioritize guidance and gaining knowledge to strengthen our iman, to strengthen our understanding of Islamic values and principles over anything else. When we come to the masjid, we prioritize the sense of community that Islam is built upon. That we come to pray together, we do activities together, we socialize together to build brotherhood and sisterhood bonds. The first thing the Prophet ﷺ did when he went to Medina from the Hijrah is establish a masjid. That was the very first thing ﷺ did. Because this was going to gather everybody to build a community. You can't build a community without a masjid. And those who come, from the Arab world, sometimes we call the masjid al-jami'. Jami' means the place that gathers or collects people. And so this tying of how frequent we come to the masajid with the strength of our belief. And so we can examine that for ourselves. So my recommendation to myself and to everybody, inshallah ta'ala, that we see how frequent we come to the masjid. It should be, inshallah, at least a part of our day that we come every day to the masjid. If we're not there, no problem, we can work towards coming at least one prayer a day. If we already do Isha every day, because we're in Isha, then try to add Fajr. And if you do that every day, then add another prayer. Try to come to the masjid for durus, for halaqat, for activities. This all counts. This is all building a community. There's a lot of, if you look at where your baseline is and try to increase that, because that's a sign of iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last day. And I hope that was a benefit, inshallah ta'ala. So inshallah next week we'll start a new series. يروي الترمذي في سننه بسند حسن عن أبي سعيد الخدري عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إذا رأيتم الرجل يعتاد المسجد، أو في رواية أخرى يعتاد المساجد، فاشهدوا له بالإيمان، فإن الله تعالى يقول إنما يعمر مساجد الله من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر. صدق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك.